Phoenix Restaurant says this is a photo of coal miners, but I see offensive blackface written by Rashad Thomas on AZ Central. Who determines what's offensive? A photo in a downtown Phoenix restaurant raises this question. We know the answer to that question. Apparently it's you who gets to determine what's offensive. Let's find out why. He writes, a few weeks ago I attended a holiday party at a downtown Phoenix restaurant. I walked around to view the photographs on the wall. Then a photograph caught my attention. Friends said, it's coal miners at a pub after work. It was a photograph of coal miners with blackened faces. I asked a Latinx and white woman for their opinion. They said it looked like coal miners at a pub after work. Then they stepped back, frowned, and said, it's men in blackface. No, it's a photograph of miners with blackened faces. You know, people who rarely got to live past the age of 40 and lived in severe and often inhuman conditions. A photograph of people. You know, people. Leave it to the perpetually offended to turn an innocent photo of people from long ago into an excuse to be a racist. Bear with me as we look further into this story. I asked the waitress to speak with a manager. Instead, I spoke with a white restaurant owner. He wanted to speak to a human being, but instead he was stuck with a white person. Oh, the horror. This is where we see the religion of intersectional feminism and identity politics turns a harmless photo into a reason to be racist. Why the need to point out the skin color of the restaurant owner? I ask you. I explained to him why the photograph was offensive. A bad case of intersectional splaining, I guess. Evidently, someone else had made a similar comment about the photograph before. Oh dear, apparently there is more than one perpetually offended person in the world looking to invent reasons to be offended. Yet the photograph remained on the wall. He said he would talk to the other owners and get back to me. While leaving, I asked him, had he spoke with the other owners? He had not spoken with them, but mentioned Google, said it's coal miners after work. The authoritarian leftist cannot comprehend why the owner hasn't complied with his righteous demands, since the photo complainer has deemed an ordinary picture to be heretical. You know, the one who gets to decide what is offensive. It should be removed immediately upon his say-so. Never does it occur to the regressives that they could be mistaken or maybe someone else is right. A critical stage in human development is theory of mind. At a young age, most of us become aware that others have perspectives and other things that differ from our own. Social justice warriors may have skipped over that phase of childhood development. This person expects the owner of the restaurant, you know, that horrible white person, to convene a board meeting about a common photo on the walls. Pronto. Because know-it-all SJW expects instant gratification. He thinks, I am morally superior to you, therefore you must act upon my wishes immediately. In art, everyone sees something different. A worn-out platitude unworthy of a simple photograph. Look, dude, I don't think a photo hanging on a wall of a restaurant qualifies as a work of art. Who determines what's offensive? Well, it seems that you do. For me, the coal miners disappeared, and a film honored for its artistic merit despite being the most racist propaganda films ever, D.W. Griffith's Birth of a Nation, surfaces in which white actors appeared in blackface. The white owner saw coal miners in the photograph, therefore it was not offensive. It matters not what the skin color of the restaurant owner is. Photographs of real people are not offensive. So first, a print of a photograph has been elevated to a work of art. Now, you imagine in your perpetually offended mind that it is also a moving picture, what they called films or movies in those days. All you have done is to create false illusions of what this picture might be, wrongly conflating it with a movie from 100 years ago. You have made no credible argument to convince sane people anywhere that a photo of coal miners is offensive. You might have offered, well, it's obvious these people are dirty and need a bath, or they are going to hell because they appear to be drinking alcohol, or the second man from the right is lustily leering at that poor seated woman. I would have laughed at any of those comments, but at least they could be based on reality. In someone's mind, that is. Fact, the photograph shows coal miners' faces covered in soot. The context of the photograph is not the issue. Okay, here we go. The intent has nothing to do with the crime argument. But if there is no crime in this case, offense, then why bring up context? Students have painted their faces black at the Arizona State University Sun Devils blackout football game. During Halloween, people are encouraged not to wear blackface. Phoenix Institution of Contemporary Art showcased Bob Carey's portrait of himself in blackface. If people are encouraging others to be offensive, then you very well can take offense. Most people find purposeful use of blackface to offend others as offensive. It's hardly conceivable that there are people running around encouraging people to wear blackface on Halloween, although I'm sure there are some exceptions. Citing examples of what may or may not be true is not an argument for turning a photo of coal miners into an offense. Oh, that's right. Context is not the issue. So we're not allowed to attempt to think back to maybe 100 years ago and ask ourselves if the people who organized or made this coal miner photo intended it to offend. We can't ask ourselves, why did they have this need to create an image of people sitting around having a beer or two after a grueling 14-hour shift? That means nothing, right? Art can be a trickster. People view artwork once and subsequently see something different. Now we attribute intention and agency to an inanimate object. Yeah, we know beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I personally don't see shit in a Jackson Pollock painting, but others see pure genius. That photo tells me I'm not welcome. Did I miss the meta tags on the photo? I'm not seeing it. First, let's stop with the confusing of a print of an old photograph with art. Second, even if it is artwork, art is subjective. Does looking at the Mona Lisa bring you to tears because she's having this imaginary conversation with you and saying mean stuff? Viewers cannot determine the intention of an artist's work. Art also exposes society's blind spots. Blackface is only a glimpse of a larger issue. The larger issue is the lack of representation of marginalized people and their voices in Phoenix. So you're saying the restaurant is required to hang photos that represent the ethnic makeup of that area? What about the rest of the decor? Did you demand that the restrooms have those trendy swinging Western style saloon doors, or maybe the curtains hanging in the windows did not tickle your fancy? Here's an idea. Instead of telling the, I assume, hardworking restaurateur how to decorate his establishment, why don't you start your own business and adequately represent the marginalized population? I hear your pain, but it gives you no right to demand how others legally run their business. He goes on, frequently I enter art galleries and I am not represented in the art, which leads to uneducated curation for exhibitions. While shopping, I am ignored because it is assumed I am unable to purchase anything, or I am followed by a security guard because it is assumed that I am a threat to the store. Each assumption is based on a stereotype. Blackface caricatures stereotypes of black people. At the downtown Phoenix restaurant, my concern that the photograph of men in blackface was a threat to me and my face and voice were ignored. A business photograph of men with blackened faces culturally says to me, whites only. It says, people like me are not welcome. It sounds to me that you have major issues, my friend. If you are indeed being followed around a store based solely on the color of your skin, that is clearly wrong. Aside from that, you are making assumptions about people's intentions. Maybe a little history of the restaurant with the innocent photo of working class stiffs would be in order. Did they actually do or say anything to you to make you feel unwelcome? You are making assumptions based on a stereotype. You assume that others do not like you or do not want you to spend your money at their place of business. Or am I missing the sign that says you are not welcome? You haven't mentioned that, so I assume there is none. I grant you this. It is possible that the white owner does not want you to spend your money in their restaurant. We will likely never know because you have not presented us with a coherent argument based on reality. You are making the assumptions based on stereotypes. Instead of doing the work to make an effort to convince us of bad intent, you bulldoze us with your paranoias, and it seems that it's possible that you may end up with people not wanting you places because you are a complainer who insists on getting your own way. You get to decide what others can and can't do. You are offended when they make decisions based on whatever it is they choose to make them. You are saying to us, let us remove what I consider an unfair system based on race and replace it with my unfair system that is based on race. And I say that because it is you that keeps pointing out people's skin color or background. The operators of that downtown restaurant can choose to take the photograph down, leave it up, or create a title card with an intention statement. No matter their decision, I think the photograph should be taken down, sacrificing one image for the greater good. I have to imagine, but I don't know if this is true, that you did not engage the people at the restaurant in good faith. It sounds to me that the white restaurant owner was polite and solicitous, and you were demanding that they do your bidding. I assume while in your bubble of fellow intersectional identity politics crowd, you all agree that white people are inherently bad and all marginalized people are good. But when discussing the details of how a business should be run, you do not get to tell them what they must do. You, of course, are welcome to vote with your wallet and not give them your cash, but it is possible that instead of pestering an entrepreneur, maybe try and reason with them. Although I find it highly unlikely that sane people would ever conclude that an ordinary photo from generations ago is anything to worry about. And based on your terribly weak arguments here, you are not very convincing. But those intent on being perpetually offended instead of trying to make something better for themselves and others, you will see offense everywhere you look. Next, we take a peek at more of the perpetually offended, imagining more offenses where they do not exist. Peggy O'Donnell writes in Jezebel about the settler fantasies woven into the prairie dresses. To say that the prairie dress and the frontier femininity it embodies is merely traditional elides this whole history, a history of land theft that displaced and sometimes killed its original occupants. It also elides the active participation of women in that history. Women in prairie dresses aren't dressing like fringe religious groups in a delightful, odd turn of fashion. They are dressing like their own great-great-grandmothers in a claim, conscious or not, to a racialized and gendered history. I'm not going to spend much time on this one, but basically Peggy is complaining that wearing something that is in fashion is akin to some horrible genocide of American natives. Never mind that fashion is ephemeral and means very little. She is making an argument against a trend and attributing things that I'm quite sure the wearers of such clothes are completely and utterly unaware of, and therefore meaningless. Are the prairie dresses some bold statement of hate towards a group or people? I doubt it. But in the mind of the perpetually offended, they see offense, and it is everywhere. Thank you for listening, watching, whatever you did. Goodbye.